My guest on the show today is Jonathan Wess. Jonathan is the CEO and founder of TimeCapsule Family Connections, a company that is helping people everywhere to leave a legacy for their families after they're gone. And I don't know a lot about this company, so I'm super excited about it. And what I'm also very excited to have you on for, Jonathan, is what you told me as we were catching up before we started recording. You like to describe yourself as a mythical CEO. I can assure you this is the first time on my show I've had somebody who's described themselves as that. So Jonathan, welcome. So good to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Jonathan, you're in Buffalo, New York. I'm in New York. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be damn cold tomorrow. Let's get the weather niceties out of the way. It's gonna be. We're recording this in Friday, January 14th. It's gonna be like -20. And the real thing is, I'm actually a big Bills fan, and they're playing the Patriots tomorrow night. And it's going to be, I think they're saying it might be the coldest NFL playoff game in history.
Oh, yeah.
I like it cold, but not that cold, especially catching a football or kicking a football in -15 degrees. No, thank you. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, those are the moments where they stop catching things and you realize that you're so angry because you're like, that's why you get paid. But then you're like, can I really blame you? Because it's -43 out. Like,
and also that ground is going to be so hard. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today to get to know you. So let's just kick this off. So first things first, what's something that you nerd out about?
This is going to sound really awful, but business. I am such a nerd for business and for entrepreneurship to the point where I actually mentor with an organization called E4All, which helps minority communities to start small businesses and become mentors and that kind of stuff, because I just love like lean processing and helping things work better. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely nerd out about that. I'm a huge politics person.
Yeah.
I love the whole aspect of politics. I graduated in political science, so my favorite shows are like Madam Secretary and West Wing. Like those things that it just helps my brain to keep going. And yeah, I can talk about those things forever. That and spirituality, honestly. Nice. And from like a Catholicism, kind of like a being spiritual kind of way, but a spirituality in the sense of like knowing the universe and everything like that. I think it's really, really cool and really fascinating because you can't prove it wrong.
Yeah.
People will talk about it and you keep hearing these things and it's not really a fact, but can you really say something different and say that it's not right? So
I know.
Definitely those things are the things that I will talk about over and over again. And I have friends that are the same way. And we have spent hours just going over it and talking about all those things.
That's awesome.
I'm definitely.
Yeah, there's so many nuggets in there. I want to. Man, there's so much good stuff in there. I'm like, what do I want to go in on? And I think I want to go in on. I want to ask you a little bit more about business, because that's not actually an answer that comes up very often here. And I totally get it. I nerd out on business too, but I nerd out on specific parts of business and other parts of business I despise. So it sounds like you're a fan of operations, how to take things from good to great, kind of like like what part of business specifically do you specialize in? And like, do you really, like if I was like, hey, I've got a business, Jonathan, I need you to come in and do some work for me. What's the part of my business that you're going to get real excited to take a look at and help me with?
Yeah, you nailed it right on the head in the fact of like helping things work better.
Yeah.
I like to work on businesses that have been in operation for at least a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can use trends to try and see things that I may see as common sense, but also knowing that the business owner also sees stuff as common sense that I don't.
Sure.
And knowing how to make it work well, I think is just fascinating. Operations has always been a very crucial part of my life. My mom is a director of operations and has been for the last, I think, probably 35 years now. So I grew up around that. I grew up with her coming home and being like, I had to figure out a way to save the company, $1 million in a week.
Wow.
And, she would get pretty close. And that's what I grew up with her, describing to me. So when I came of age, I was going to be an architect for a little while. And then I ended up going to school for politics and entrepreneurship, falling in love with that. So really finding out how to let people start. Really, to answer your question directly, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, I want to start this business, the first thing that I'm going to ask you is, what are your goals?
Yeah.
Because a business isn't about the other person. A business is about you and what you want to do and how you're going to stick up for it, because there's going to be moments where everyone's going to tell you that it can't be done, or something won't be done, or something isn't going to happen. So you need to have your goals, and you need to be steadfast in those, and realize that those goals may change, but you have to want to stick up for them.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the first thing. What are your goals, and why do you want to open the business?
Sure.
Why do you want to be really working with new founders is a love of mine.
Yeah.
Doing programs for them, the amount of internship programs that I've hosted, the amount of people that I've mentored through the process, it's really about how to use their strengths to pretty much help them.
Yeah.
One of the things that I say is that we're all an expert at something. We just have to be willing to sit down and talk with the other person to find out what that is.
Yeah.
So my goal when I am mentoring someone or when I'm with somebody is I say, what is your superpower? Let's find out what your superpower is. A good leader is a sidekick. A good leader is the superhero. A good leader is the sidekick. So if I can help you, what your superpower is, what you need to win the day, is where I nerd out in business. Man. And how to be that leader that does that. Because I've worked for a good number of companies now. And when I started my own, a big part of it was realizing that everyone has their own story.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to smush your story, but I am here to tell you, my side of it. Because my side isn't your side, but it's a different point of view that you should think about, but not put a lot of effort into. Think about it. Whatever resonates with you. Whatever doesn't, either you'll learn over time or wasn't important at the time.
Yeah. So
that's really where I nerd out, is doing the leadership portion, the operations portion, and helping new entrepreneurs and seeing their dreams come to light.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing thing in the world to
see
someone have an idea and then all of a sudden a year later have it in reality.
Right.
And be making money to actually grow their own self-worth. Is just to see their face light up when a new flavor comes out of something, or when they make a new PR. It's just incredible. So that's where I nerd out about business.
Yeah, at first it was funny as I was listening to you. I'm pretty good at the operations, but I'm not so into it. But then when you moved into the people part, I'm like, oh yeah, you're describing me exactly. I'm like a certified Clifton Strengths coach. I'm certified in DISC. I do leadership coaching in tech. So I'm listening to you. I'm like, yes. Yeah. Like I geek out on people. I'm way more interested in paying somebody else I'm more interested in like, hey, how's it going with the people? How's it going with the culture? Mm-hmm. How do we increase the efficiency and the excellence of the people from a people perspective, both from their skills and also their motivation? I'm not nearly as interested in the operational part, because there's so many other people who do that. There's so many people who do what I do and what you do, but like I like the people. I'm a people person, so I'm like, yeah, like what's the breakdown in the executive team? Like what's not going well? Oh, personality conflicts. How do we address that? Like that's so we might have some synergies to talk about offline sometime.
Yeah, well, and I love the fact that you're certified in DISC. Yeah, because I'm certified in. But it's such a thing that people hear and they just don't know what it is. Yeah. They don't know what DISC management is, and that whole culture, I think, is actually very important to being a good leader. So you said the one of the buzzwords for me, which is DISC management, how you use that to the advantage.
Let's see if live for you and I on the air, based on what you described, I would say you're like a mid IS with some C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, which is really funny because most people see me as a DI.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that you actually nailed it right on the head.
Magic. This is not scripted. What do you think for me? What do you think I am?
Oh, from what I know already, which isn't all that much, I'm gonna go with either a DS. Yeah, I'm going to go with a DS, actually. A DS or a DS or DC, I would say.
Good. So when I was in corporate, I was at high DC. Because I did work that kind of required a little more detail, but I'm always results oriented. Since I pivoted to my own thing, I'm actually a high ID. I'm almost a DI. Okay. I'm like almost at 12 o'clock and I'm all the way out. Like I am a strong pull. I have almost no interest in the details. Like the high C stuff. I'm like, I'm going to pay somebody else to do that. I just don't. I like the vision. I like the where are we going. I don't care that it has to be perfect or that it has like in there. So we're both pretty close. That's good.
I said it because of what we talked about offline about like the systems and everything like that. Yeah. And I'm just like, all right, let's put this into accountability. But
yeah, man.
So close.
You're close. No, you're close. You're close. All right. So Jonathan, what's something that's inside of your comfort zone that's going to be outside of somebody else's?
Inside my comfort zone that's going to be outside of someone else's is taking a leap of faith is the first thing that comes to mind. Something that is in my comfort zone is to do what scares me, which is usually what you say is outside your comfort zone.
Right.
But my first instinct when something scares me is to figure out a solution around what scares me. So, everything from heights and rock climbing, that kind of stuff, to starting my own business, even at one point in time having to move back home, if that made something successful, that was what had to happen. So I think really doing what scares me is the first thing that I'll try to do. I may push it off and I may try to do plans about it, but I think that's going to be doing what scares me is, I think, the biggest thrill of a life. Because then when you realize the things that don't scare me kind of bore me.
Yeah.
So I think that would be
that's a good one. I really like that answer. And now we're going to flip the script, and I'm super curious what you're going to talk about next year. So what is something that's outside of your comfort zone that is inside of other people's?
Something that's very outside of my comfort zone that's inside of others is putting a lot of effort into friendships.
Wow, actually, that's an interesting one.
I love my friends, and my friends have been there for me for actually a long time now. But for other people, it's just kind of, you make friends and you're there, they're there, and it's part of their comfort zone to put more and more effort into it. The longer that I know my friends, the more effort that I put into them.
Mm-hmm.
And because I learned that very early on, that I put a lot of effort into people that didn't want to put effort into my relationship with them. So the longer that you're around, I mean, we could go out every day, or we could be texting every day of every minute. And I do have a friend group that is amazing that does that. But really part of that comfort zone is putting a ton of effort into friendships right up front. Is something that makes me kind of feel uncomfortable because I don't like to waste time.
Yep, that makes sense. Time, energy, soul work, right? Like this is where the spirituality stuff too is, like getting connected with people and having that flow and not wasting that, because that is for most of us, that's not an infinite resource.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you get this one life to prove what you want to do. And I say that you can have multiple lives inside of this life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to reference someone that has been in the news a lot recently, like Betty White. Betty White, in my opinion, had one career, but she had many different careers inside of this one life, and she had many different lives and different marriages, and she lived her life to her fullest. And I kind of use that as an example for how I want to live mine. So when new people come into my life, I'll sit and I'll put in the effort that as much as I can. But it's the people, and my longest friend is 12 years. My next longest friend is 10. And I have friends after that are some of my best friends that have been around for 5 years. And they get that. They get the fact that the longer that they're there, the longer that I really love and will do anything for them.
Yeah.
But that's where my comfort zone is. When I meet somebody new, I'm very cordial and I don't do a lot of opinions right up front. I really wait until they show their true colors to show any kind of opinion about anybody. But that it's really more about trying to push through that boundary and see, is this going to be someone that's going to really wreck my dreams? Someone that's going to come in and be like, that's not possible. Someone that's going to be there, but that's interesting. Let's talk about that more, which is all of my friends.
Yeah.
Right now. They're all there being like, one of my goals when I get older, I want to run for president. I want to run. That's a goal. That's a big goal.
I hope you do it just so I could say I have a presidential candidate on the show like 20 years from now or whenever you decide to do it. I don't know how old you are, but you have to be about 45. Is it 45 to be president or 35? No, 35. 35. That's right. Because Kennedy was like 41 or 42 when he won, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. 35.
Yes. And all of my friends know it. And I do have friends that come around and be like, okay, but be realistic. And I eventually we just we just separated. It wasn't anything bad. It wasn't anything like I left them. It was just kind of like, all right, that's fine. But my friends right now, I have friends that are working towards being in the presidency with me, building a resume to be there with me and helping me run that campaign because I want to come back to New York and run for Congress and Senate and eventually president. So, after I started the company Time Capsule because I was one of those people that believed that everyone else had their own story, but I didn't really know their stories. And I believe that there should be no political person that ran for office that didn't know and the people that they are governing and know the biggest troubles of them. So, I have these big dreams and I'm already building to getting there one day and making those friends that are there because they believe in what I can do and knowing that may change. I may get up in a few weeks and be like, no, that's not what I want to do. And they're there to say, are you happy?
Yep.
They're not there to say no. They're not there to say anything else. So to get back to the question and stop by ranting, the biggest challenge for me, I think, and the biggest thing that makes me feel out of my comfort zone is really putting effort into friendships up front.
Got it. All right. Because it's my show, I get to ask the questions. When you are in public office, is being on my podcast now, does that qualify me for a phone call directly to you, or do I need to go through your office?
It definitely puts you on the list, so that way when you call the office, it's a direct.
You're like 2022. I met Jonathan, Senator Wess. I may need a favor. I don't know. I may need a favor. When we both reside in the same state, so if you're running for state office, you can definitely help me out, right? Like I'm,
exactly.
Half kidding, half kidding.
Always, even the best jokes are only half.
Yeah, of course. Always truth and comedy. All right, Jonathan, we're going to take a really brief commercial break, and we'll be right back after this.
The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
That's good.
All right, Jonathan, we're back. So I've learned a lot about you. We've all learned a lot about you so far. And I say that because this next question is, my listeners know what's coming. What else do you want us to know about you?
From a business standpoint, that I am a very hard worker who believes that there isn't one way to do anything. I think it's the biggest characterization of me. I believe that we are using a guess and check method every day, and that we're just using other people's experience to say that that's the quote unquote right way. But I don't believe there actually is a exact right way to do things. I think there is a best way to do things. I don't think that there is a exactly right way.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a atmosphere of you did what you had to because it's what you want to do to accomplish what you want to do. I lost my father when I was 5, and had a mother that stepped up and raised us to the best. I mean, amazingly. My sisters and I would say, are decently successful. And what I really pride myself on is that characterization of, I put my heart and soul into anything that I do. Mm-hmm. And I don't half anything. That is the biggest characteristic of who I am and what I do from a business standpoint. And the fact that I just care for people.
Yeah.
And and that's why I started the company that I did. Yeah. I mean, from what I know, and there could be a company out there that I'm not aware of, I am the only person doing what I'm doing that has actually lost a parent and wanted this for that reason. Yeah. There's somebody else that's doing it that has lost grandparents that's doing it. There's somebody else that, wanted to know what their parents' story was like, but I'm the only one that truly sat there and I'm like, no, I lost this person that I'm supposed to see every day. So the thing about me that I think best describes me is an incredibly hard worker who cares for the person standing in front of them.
Yeah. Well, so this feels like just the right time to talk about Time Capsule Family Connections, because you've alluded to the company a couple of times. What is it that you actually do? What does the company do?
Yeah, so Time Capsule Family Connections is a legacy building company. More specifically, it is what we do is we sit down and we have 280, I'm sorry, not 180, 280 questions in which we have gotten, which have been seen by and have been questions that have been used by social workers, journalists, authors. My God, there's been people that's people in general that wanted to know, and people part of the Dead Parent Society, that these are all questions in which we wanted to know about our loved ones. Mm-hmm. So it's 280 possible questions. You sit down, you have 20 minutes or 20 questions, and we will record you. We will ask it. And actually, most of it's done online. So we just hop on a Zoom, kind of like this. Yeah. And we ask the questions, and that gets uploaded to our time capsule. And now your family has something about, you from, what was your biggest experience in college? What is something that you thought you would regret, but don't? Those questions that we don't ask our loved ones too often, but some people are just uncomfortable with asking their loved ones or want to do it for themselves, but don't know what to ask. And we provide those very in-depth questions to make sure that you're leaving a legacy behind.
Yeah, very cool. Where can people find out more about it?
Yeah, go to our website. Our website is www.timecapsulellc.com. You'll see everything about us, from past client reviews to, pricing. And we do stuff, actually, if you're in Buffalo or you're about 90 minutes away, we can come to your house.
Oh, nice.
You can also come to our office at Seneca 1 in Buffalo. And then we also have, most of our clients are online.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We just hop on a Zoom call. So we can do it from anywhere.
Yeah.
You can be anywhere in the world. We've done people in Thailand before. We've done people in London. We've done people in New York City. Like, it over Zoom, and then we'll record it and we put it on your time capsule for you.
Cool.
We also have another option where you get one question a week and you can upload it as you want. It's only 2-minute video, and that way you build your time capsule that way. So we have two different options.
I love that. That's super cool, Jonathan. I will put all of that in the show notes, the link in the show notes, for people that are listening that maybe don't have a like, wait, what was that? I will put it on the show notes. That's amazing. I'm going to check it out after the show. And now, my friend, it's your time to shine. Not that you haven't shown, but now you get to, maybe not your time to shine. Maybe your time to sit back and ask me a question or two. So, Jonathan, we don't know each other than for the last 36 minutes. So what do you want to ask me that I can answer for all of you?
Oh, remember, this is what I do for a living.
I know.
So
I'm a little on edge here, but we'll see.
All right, so let's start with my favorite question that I ask. It's, what is something that you thought you would regret but don't?
Yeah, you might hear a future podcast episode, and I might have a couple new questions. Can I license your content, your time capsule content, into my podcast? It's really good. That's a great question. Man, what is something that I thought I would regret, but I don't? This is a good one for me because I don't have a lot of regrets. I'm a really forward. It's kind of like it's how it's supposed to be thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that comes to mind is I thought I would regret not putting more effort in school, but I don't. This all worked out just fine. So I'm not much of an academic. I was one of those students in high school and college that if I liked the subject and it either entertained me or I thought it to be practical enough that I could use it, crushed it. If it was something that I was like, yeah, this is too theoretical for me, or I don't see how this is applicable to my life goals, I could care less. So what I'd like, and my grades were fine. They weren't great, but I think, it's kind of like, oh, you have to do well in school to do well in life. It's kind of sometimes the philosophy. And so I think while I was in school, I'm like, oh, if I have a 3.0 or a 3.1 and not a 4.0, I'm really going to regret this when I get out into the real world and nobody's going to hire me. And that hasn't really been the case. So, man, you really got me thinking. I've never thought about that before. And that's, that was a while ago. I was in college. So thank you. That's a really cool question.
Yeah. And I felt the same way. I mean, when I was in school, I did everything. I was president of this, ran this club, ran this business, did that. But I didn't like homework. Yeah. I was the person that loved to learn, but didn't like homework. So
yeah, me too.
I totally get that. I was so adamant on the fact that I have to build a resume that says this. And then I got into the real world and they're like, yeah, none of that counts. And I'm like, what do you mean none of that counts?
They're like, do you know how to talk to people and get along with people and learn stuff? And you're like, those things I can do. And they're like, you're hired.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Are you teachable? And do people like working with you? Yes and yes. Okay, you're a good candidate for us for a lot of jobs out there.
I love that question too, because I never asked that on interviews.
Yeah.
I never asked, are you teachable? And people do. I've gotten asked that on interviews before. But why would anyone say no? Why would anyone say no? Like, of course you're going to say that you're teachable. Of course you're going to do that. It's like, honestly, I'm more inclined to hire the person that said no because I know that they're truthful than I am the person that said yes. Right. So, I just always found those questions funny. Are you teachable? Are you a good listener? Are you this? I'm like, of course I'm going to say yes.
And of course, and also closed-ended questions in interviews it's just a bad move.
Yeah.
Because you don't get anything. You're like, there's no brain space. There's awesome question. I've done a little over 100 episodes and nobody's ever asked me anything near that. So thank you. It's first time I've heard the nerding out thing in one of your things, and first time somebody's asked me this question. So I love it. Part of the fun of doing a podcast.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Jonathan.
It is when we do TimeCapsule too. We just sit there and the amount of new stuff that I hear. I mean, the amount of stories I hear about marriages and about, family legacy. It's so fun to talk to people.
Yeah.
And the fact that I get to do it is impressive. So, and that's what for everyone listening as well, like I want to know your story. I want you to do something behind. So like, come record with us. Even just message me. If you see that something on our website is too high a cost or something like that, I love what I do. Just message me. Email me. My email's on the website.
Yeah.
Just email me. Let me know, and we'll figure something out.
Awesome.
I would rather have your story recorded for your future generations than have money be a blocker.
Awesome. I love that. I am, again, because it's my show and I run it like a tyrant, sort of, not really. I'm going to take advantage and have you ask me another question because you do this for a living. So this is because I'm learning, like, I'm sure you've got something else for me that's going to be a really cool question. And I also think it's a cool way to demonstrate some of the work you do, right? Like this is what, like you said, you actually do this. So this is what the experience is like. And I'm definitely going to do some stuff with TimeCapsule. This is like my jam is like, ask me questions that are probing and like require me to think about things. I love this stuff. So because I work for myself, I don't actually get interviewed by anybody for like a job anymore. So yeah, what's something else you want to ask me that I can answer for you and everybody listening?
Yeah. So what if you had to describe your family now?
Yeah.
You're in the culture that's around your family. What would be the 3 words you would use and why?
So good. Well, let me give you a little context here. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old and a wife and a 1-year-old golden retriever puppy who's part of our family. So the first word that comes to mind is chaotic. The second word that comes to mind is fun. The third word that comes to mind is team.
I love that.
Yeah. So why? I don't know if I need to explain why a 1-year-old puppy, and a 5-year-old is chaotic during a pandemic. A lot going on.
Yeah.
Fun because my wife and I, who for those listening, my wife was guest number 1 in season 3, which we're now in season 3. You'll be on season 3. She was my first guest. She's my 101st guest. So she's amazing. Great episode. It's out now. We are committed to having fun. So I have this saying in my life, if it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. Does that mean I like doing my taxes or, scraping off the car when there's ice on it? Not necessarily, but things that I don't have to do, that I get to choose to do, like interviewing people on a podcast or what I do in my business. I generally don't do things unless I find them enjoyable, because I have a long history in my corporate career of having to do that because people were telling me what I had to do. And so and I say this, Jonathan, because my wife and I are committed to fun in our family. So we have a lot of fun. I do tea parties with our daughter. We play Barbies together. My son and I, he's not really talking yet, but he's walking like a maniac. We'll tickle fight. Like we do all these really fun things. We're just really committed to a lot of joy in our house, because it's actually how I grew up. I grew up in a very joyful house. Was fortunate. My parents are both still alive. I grew up with my grandparents. So I grew up in a very joyful childhood, and I'm really committed to the joy and fun in our family. And then team, it doesn't, and this is really, I think, more for my marriage, but also with our 5-year-old, she'll be 6 in a few weeks. The idea that this only works as a team. In terms of even with her, hey, our son's name is Charlie. Hey, can you go make sure Charlie does this, or can you help him clean up, or having her help with the dog? Hey, can you make sure that her name is Sunshine? Hey, can you make sure that Sunshine is fed? Starting to do those things as a team, and realizing that this house works best when we're working as a football team. We all know what we're doing, and we can also audible and do things as we need to, versus it's all on my wife. It's all on me. It's even all on it's not all going to be on our 5-year-old. Obviously that would be really weird, but working as a team, and we're all committed to that. And we say that we're hey, we're Team Frizzell. We call ourselves Team Frizzell.
I love that.
Yeah. So thank you. Really. You have a new customer at TimeCapsule. I cannot wait to come and do this process. This is so my jam. Well, thanks for indulging me with another question. Do you just want to take over for the next 15 minutes and just ask me questions? All right. No, we're here to highlight you. All right, Jonathan. What's something that you're passionate about that we haven't talked about yet?
That we haven't talked about yet,
or an expansion on what you have talked about. Sky's the limit here.
Yeah. Good question. I mean, passion. Really passion. Something I'm passionate about is something that I think about a lot. Something that I am consistently trying to get better at. Something that I enjoy thinking about. Right. Something that it's not even about being the thing that I know the best. It's not about even the thing that I am the most enthralled with at the moment, but it's the thing that I am the most actively trying to learn, and the thing that I enjoy talking about. So I would say the next thing would be really the concept of Sonder in society. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I mean, that's what Time Capsule really is the realization that everyone has their own life. And there's a lesson that I learned recently. And I learned it a while ago, but it wasn't put so eloquently as as this, and it was the fact that everyone is a main character in their own life. The universe is revolving around them. Their universe is revolving around them.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to realize is the fact that they may be a supporting role in our life, but they're not in theirs. So
that's great.
People and passion, my passion for learning people and knowing the fact that, there's moments while I'll be driving into work in the morning, I'll look over and the person next to me is someone that I don't know, but the fact that our stories crossed for 2 minutes because we got off the same turnpike.
Yeah.
Like at that moment, our stories have intertwined. That is like the Venn diagram of it. So having that, has led me to spirituality and the whole idea of there being another universe and other dimensions and there's energies that we can pull from. It's that concept that the world is run on love and the world is run on this energy of how we can best support the other person. So yeah, I think my passion really comes from knowing that there's other people in this world and how do we help them? Because the world is never going to be equal. Yeah. That's the one thing that I think is a common misconception is everyone's just like, oh, we have to be more equal. We have to, I said, there are
never going to happen
things. Yeah, there are different things that we can be more equal on. There's definitely, pay things that we could be more equal on. And there's definitely things that like voting rights. And there's things that we can be more equal on, but we're never going to be equal because that would be a shame.
Yeah.
To have everyone do the same thing. That would be such a boring society.
Yeah.
Our differences are what make up this beautiful. And it's such a present to be able to look at somebody and know you're so different than me. Being able to look at my sisters and I grew up in the same household, my middle sister, I have two sisters, is only 2 years older than me. And yet her and I are so different. Yeah. So different. It's crazy because we went to the same schools, everything. All three of us went to Jesuit institutions. We had very similar lives, and yet she's a social worker. And my older sister is a special needs teacher, in applied behavior analysis. And my one sister also works with that, but yet I'm in business. Yep. And I'm working with people that have just immigrated to the country, people that want to start a business but don't know how to. So my passion is for that. My passion is to love what it is that we are as humankind. Yeah. Which I'm going to stop rambling now. No, well, I'm just going to keep.
I was about to say, no, it's beautiful. It's spoken like a true IS on the disc profile. Very people oriented. I love that. I want to share this real quick with you and with the audience. I do group coaching work at a community. It's a online community of tech people that work in tech space, generally like directors and above or startups founders. And we had our first session yesterday. And one of the ways we wrap those sessions is we ask two questions. One is describe in one word how you're feeling now, which I think is a super cool way to end a session. And the second question is, what's one thing you have now that you didn't have when you came in? And this is all on a online platform. And I facilitate and lead it, but I also participate as a member. And my answer was fascinating. I think it's right along with what you said, Jonathan. I said, it boggles my mind that you could have a person born in a small fishing village in Italy, a woman who fled Africa, a guy from San Diego who almost died on a operating table at 24, and all of these amazing people that we're kicking off this group for 1 year with, and that we all are together, all seven of us are here on this screen, and we've gotten to know each other over the last 2 hours. Like, the chances of that actually happening are so, like, it always just blows my mind. Like, there's so many things that could have happened that would have had that not happen, but we are there together with these seven people. Blows my mind. I'm always blown away by that. You're like, how is it possible that the seven of us are now here based on our journeys? Because we were part of that group as we share how we were, like where we're from, but also like, hey, what was it like growing up in our family? What are some successes and failures? And people's stories were so wildly different. We had somebody who's like, my parents were killed. We had another person who's like, I grew up with 10 brothers and sisters, like, and yet we're all here together looking at each other. So I'm always amazed by the commonality of humanity. Once you strip away status, money, where you're from, how you were raised, and you're just like, oh, like most people most people are good people. It sounds like you probably believe that as well. Not everybody, but most people.
Yeah, I believe that there's an inherent good to society, definitely. And like, to add on to your point, it's interesting to see, because the amount of people that are doing what I do, I mean, it isn't a lot, but it's enough but we all had a different story, but we still wanted to hear people's legacies. I mean, that, getting to talk with those other founders, they're amazing men. It's a shame that there aren't more women in the space, but they're just these two amazing men who are just the sweetest people and have offered to help me with whatever.
Nice.
And it is interesting to me to see just the fact that someone could come from something so different, but yet be so alike, but yet the people that come from something so alike saw life in such a different way.
Yeah.
So it's definitely awesome.
Yeah. Awesome, Jonathan. All right. I call this my therapy question. You ready? I think you're down for that. You're down for this. It's not too scary. I'm not going to ask you about, family of origin stuff. It's going to be just more about you. What's something that you're afraid might actually be true about you?
Oh, that I am a bad listener. Something is my biggest critique, to say that I love to hear people's stories, and I do. And I can learn, I definitely learn, because of how much I learn, and because of how much I listen to people, and how much I think about what someone said, or how it was said, or something like that, I believe that I am a good listener, because I can take what people are telling me and change it into real progress, not only in my life, but into helping some of my mentees and everything. But, when I talk to people, the first thing that they hear is me go on and keep talking and everything like that. So, when people really want to hurt me, something that they'll say is be like, you're such a bad listener, and you never listen to me, and you never do this. And because of how much I know and how much I do listen, I don't believe it to be true, but it is one of my biggest fears that maybe I don't. It's something that I keep working on because of it.
Yeah. Well, so the second part of this question that you don't actually have is, so what do you do to compensate for that fear? Because, you're a human person. You know that our ego and our subconscious is always looking to protect ourselves from the things that we believe to be, that we don't want to believe are true. So I think you alluded to it there, and maybe even said it, but Jonathan, what do you do to overcome that fear, or to demonstrate that it is not true about you?
Yeah, like, I will repeat things back in my head.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I will sit there and I'll listen intently, and then while they're talking, if there's a break, if they go to sip coffee or something, I'm repeating it back in my head to go over it in my head to make sure. Like, I know that I know that we talked about disc training earlier, and I know that you're detail oriented because you were talking about KitCast a little bit in the beginning, and then we're talking about Senator Gillibrand, so about that, and then we're talking about your family and how you have a 5-year-old. I redid it in my head to make sure that I was consistently listening, because, like I said, it is one of my biggest fears that I don't listen.
Yeah.
So sitting there when I am talking with anyone now, I repeat it back as much as I possibly can. Yeah. Of course, I'm a human and I can't remember every word, but the big details that I feel to me, which sometimes it's funny because I have a good memory too. So I'll remember things and my friends are like, how did you remember that? And be like, I repeated it back.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually don't do much of that. And my memory, I think I have a decent memory, but that sounds like a really good tool to use, is to, hey, repeat back internally. Oh, so Jonathan just said that he because I have a good memory for again, this is my personality, is I have a good memory for like the big stuff, but, and I'll be completely transparent with you. There will be times when my wife will go, hey, how did your podcast episode? I'll be like, and I'll remember that I really liked you, but I won't remember that much that we talked about because, or like, I do executive coaching. There's times when I spend an intentional hour with somebody, and 4 hours later, I don't remember what we talked about. And for me, I think it's because I'm trying to be really intentional and listening in the moment, which actually for me expends a lot of energy because it's a new learning and a new way of being for me. It's not something I know I used to be a pretty awful listener.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that's true. And I'm like, yeah, that used to be true. It probably still is in some ways.
Yeah, that's the one thing. What I do when I actually talk with some of my mentees about it is they say, I don't know how you keep everything straight. I said, because at the end of the conversation, I remember some big things about them, but I don't remember the conversation in full. What I remember is the big things that pull away from it.
Yeah.
And something that I actually learned from my mother early on is to repeat back to the other person, especially if you think it's extremely important.
Yeah.
Be like, so what I'm hearing is this.
Oh, yeah.
And then repeat it back. Because when you leave that conversation, that will be all that you remember.
Totally.
It's just what you heard.
Totally.
So honestly, I'm a bigger picture thinker.
Yep.
To think about the details about absolutely everything to me is something that I can do, and I'm very good at detail work. However, I am someone that just wants to keep going, so I'm a bigger picture person.
Yeah.
So being able to just say, oh, this is what we talked about is something that I can pull from for the next time that we talk, but that's how I remember everything.
Yeah.
It's bigger picture. What did we talk about overall?
Yeah. I love that, Jonathan. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on. It has been awesome. I can't wait to connect with you outside of the podcast. And I have something I've never done on this podcast before. And usually I ask my guests to leave us with some words to wisdom, but I might actually offer that you can leave us with a question to ponder. It kind of feels like the thing that you should give us today. I don't know. I feel like I need to take advantage of your skill set here. And of course, if you have some words of wisdom, we'd love it. Maybe give us both words of wisdom. And if you've got a great question for us to think about, again, I know the boss of this podcast will make it happen.
So I'm going to have words of wisdom. It's going to lead into my question.
Great.
First one is to all the listeners out there. You're getting distracted again. You have dreams to chase, not people to impress. But part of those dreams is I'll leave you with this question. What do you want your legacy to be? It is the first question that I ask even before I start recording. What do you want your legacy to be? Do you want it to be part of family? Do you want it to be professional? Do you want it to be a little bit of both? Do you want your legacy to be left behind for someone to learn from for the next time? What do you want your legacy to be, and live your life being happy and making that part of your legacy?
I love it, Jonathan.
So ask yourself that every single day, and you will live your life to the fullest. At least I am. Let's put it that way. That's how I do it.
Well, Jonathan, I just want to say once again, it's awesome to get to know you. I'm going to connect with you offline, and also good luck with your future. I see you as a politician. I mean that in a good way, because that's not always put in a good way.
You're saying insult, but
yeah, you're like, I see you as a politician. You're like, that's not good. But yeah, thank you so much for being on, and yeah, I can't wait to have you back on again soon and catch up on what you've been up to. So thank you again.
Definitely.
Take care, Jonathan.
Awesome. Thank you
so
warm. Much for letting me be on.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.